Hello everybody, my name is Alina and welcome to my paper rose tutorial. I will show you how to create the paper rose for decorating the wall for making the photo zone. Due to the special design of this paper rose, this flower looks especially nice on the flat surfaces like the walls, mirrors or even the curtains. The size of this particular flower is about 25 centimeters, but after learning creating this particular rose, you'll easily create the bigger roses. The paper I'm working with is the pretty cheap office paper for the printers. That's about 80-gram paper, so it's quite thin and easy to work with. Though the flowers made of this office paper do not last long, I love this paper for the big number of colors and for the price. This paper is quite cheap. But of course, if you want to make the flower that will last long, you should use the designer's paper. I've got the already cut petals here. The paper is quite thick. That's the 180-gram cardstock, the designer's cardstock. And when we need to make a huge number of flowers, we do not cut the details with scissors. We order the petals at the factory where they're die cut with the machines, so they're like punched on with the special equipment. This kind of cotton at the factory is quite cheap and fast. So the details of this rose look like 4-leaf clovers, and we're assembling the flower from the inside to the outside. This technique is very convenient, and I guess that's faster to make roses with these 4-leaf clover looking details than assembling the petals one by one separately. So the paper I'm working with is the Office A3 paper, the nice peach color. It looks beautiful. I'm using 6 squares that are made of these sheets of paper, so the size of each square is approximately 30 centimeters wide and 30 centimeters long. So I'm folding each square diagonally and in halves. For making the paper rose, you will need minimum 5 squares of paper. Here on the video, I'm creating the rose with 6 sheets of paper. The more layers of petals you use for creating the rose, the nicer your flower will look. And note that you may use the paper of different colors while creating one paper rose. And that's so cool to work with the office paper, as it's very easy to fold and cut this paper. Of course, you may work with the designer's paper and cardstock, but it's a bit of an effort. So I've made 6 details, and now I will show you how to make the shape for the petals. Of course, you can start cutting out the petals without making the sketch beforehand, but I will show you how to draw the shapes of the petals here. So first, I'm trying to fit the biggest petal to this triangle. We should fit 5 sizes of petals here. So the biggest petal should look like this. Well, the sketch is approximate. When you start cutting, you can make the line more precise and nice. Pay attention at the bottom of the petal. The second petal is 1 centimeter smaller than the previous one, So look, we're making the shapes of petals, and each petal is 1 centimeter smaller than the previous. So this way we're fitting 5 different sizes of the petals. So we're drawing the shape from the biggest to the smallest. Note that you can always vary the size of your petals so the flower can be different. So we are starting cutting the smallest petal out. Pay attention that the distance between the very middle point of our paper square to the beginning of the petal is the same. So in the middle of our 4-leaf clover, the shape of the square should be seen. I'm using the smallest detail for tracing it, so I'm starting cutting the second layer of petals out. So look, I'm making the curvy cut, and it goes 1 centimeter wider than the previous layer of petals. Now I'm taking this detail to the next triangle and go cutting again 1 centimeter bigger. So now you can make the curvy cut again. Some roses would have the straight lines, some have more curvy shapes, so you can always play with this and the result of your flower will be different. So again, I'm cutting the next layer of petals. So each layer of petals is 1 centimeter wider than the previous. So here's the 5th detail, the biggest. The 6th detail will be the same size as the 5th detail. So that's what I'm talking about. In the middle of every 4-leaf clover looking detail, the square shape should be seen, or at least something that will look like a square. So now I'm assembling the layers of petals one after another. The biggest detail goes at the bottom, the smallest detail is on the top. We'll start assembling the flower from the inside to the outside. So I'm taking 2 smaller details and start folding the petals from the outside to the centers. So the second detail is done, and I'm taking 4 layers of petals, and now we should curl the corners of the petals slightly. I'm using the hot glue gun stick. You can use anything that will look like a cylinder. You can use the pencil or anything else. That's cool to work with the office paper, as you can roll several layers of petals at once. So we are rolling all the petals slightly, and after making all this, our flower will look more realistic. As you see, I'm starting using the smaller glue gun stick, so the curves, these rolls on the petals are more visible. And let's finally start assembling the flower. We are taking the first detail, the smallest, and we start assembling the flower from the inside to the outside. I'm using the Dremel hot glue gun. In my opinion, it's the best, it's convenient, it heats perfectly, and it's very nice to work with it. So I take one petal and start making a cone. The size of your cone should be perfect. It shouldn't be too wide or too narrow. The cone should fit this square on the bottom. The top of your cone should be located exactly above the very middle part of your square on the bottom of the detail. So after you've glued the first cone, you should attach the second petal to this cone. Note that we're working with petals that are located opposite each other. So as the cone was made from the left petal, the right petal goes next. It is attached to the cone with some distance. So we're not attaching this petal as close to the cone as possible. We are trying to give some space between the petals, so the flower would look more beautiful. So now our cone consists of 2 petals, so that's the very middle part of the flower, and we're attaching the third petal to our cone, to our bud of the flower. So note the space between the petals, even my finger fits to this gap. And the fourth petal goes next. So after the middle part is done, we're taking the second detail and we're attaching this bud. We're putting some glue to the bottom of this bud and we're putting the bud to the second detail like this. So note that the point of the corners of the square bottom should fit perfectly. So then the next layer of petals goes. So now I'm looking at the middle part of the flower and I'm thinking which petal goes next. I see that the one on the right would fit perfectly, and this means that this couple of petals should go next, should be glued next. So I'm putting 2 dots of glue and start attaching this petal to the cone. The next petal is the opposite one, this one. I'm rotating the details and attaching this petal to the bud. The third petal goes next. And as you see, I'm always leaving some space between the petals. And the bud already looks like real. So the third detail goes next. I'm putting the bud to the middle. I'm gluing the bottom of the bud and attaching it to the third detail. So now have a look at the buds and figure out which couple of petals was made earlier. So turn the flower around, so look, the left and right petals were the last. This means that now we're assembling the upper and lower petals. So these petals are already rolled. So I'm putting the dots of glue and assembling the petals one after another. And I'm putting the dots of hot glue lower. So I'm going closer to the bottom of the flower. so there is some space for the curls of the petals. The fourth petal goes next. So now we'll start assembling the fourth layer of petals. And now we'll work in a little different way, as we want our flower to look more natural, more real. We don't want the petals to go exactly one after another. We're rotating the bud at 45 degrees. So earlier we were assembling the buds this way, but we are rotating it this way. So putting some hot glue and attaching the flower. You should try fit the bud of the rose exactly to the middle part of your detail. And then we start attaching the petals one after another. And note that when you're gluing the petal, you should pull it quite tight so there will be no gap seen over there. So the bottom part of your flower should get as close to the bud of the rose as possible, so there should be no gap over there. So I'm pulling the petal quite tight and attaching it. You can always bend the petals afterwards. So again, putting the glue and pulling the petal. And the fourth petal goes last. So this already looks like a flower. We're taking the next layer of petals and now we're rotating the bud once again. So we're rotating this at 45 degrees. Put some glue on the bottom and attach the bud to the middle part of your detail. And now we're making the same thing. Put the glue, pull the petal and attach it. So as you see, the 5 layers of petals are assembled. Maybe this is already enough, but we've got the 6th layer of petals, and after attaching these petals, the flower would look more fluffy, more bushy, more rich, more natural. So again, there is no strict rule on how many layers of petals you should use. You can assemble as many layers as possible, and I'm sure that you may get the great results. So as you see, we've rotated the bud of the flower before assembling it to the 6th detail. So as you see, the petals are sort of covering the gaps of the petals of the previous layer. So look, our paper rose is completed. It has got the neat underside where you can attach any fastening elements that you want. This very paper rose looks especially nice on the wall. If you create these roses of different sizes, you can make just gorgeous decorations on any events, and don't forget to play with the sizes of the petals and the shapes of the petals. Thank you very much for joining me in this tutorial. In the next video, I will show you how to attach these flowers to the walls and also how to make these stems easily. Goodbye and see you soon!